Hi, I'm Greg Alderman. Welcome to One Voice Board. Today I want to illustrate for you principle number 1, which is represent Christ above all. Hey, if you find this video helpful, say so in the comment section below. And if you want to have access to new training material produced by OVB, make sure you hit the subscribe button. All right, let's dive right in. Principle number 1 is represent Christ above all else. Now, I want to illustrate this by telling an Old Testament story that is actually pretty well known, but maybe you've never thought about it along these lines. You find this story in Exodus chapters 30, 31, and 32, and really the whole book of Exodus, right? So I want to tell it this way. Imagine a senior pastor named Moses. Moses has had the most difficult ministry that anybody could have ever imagined. Literally overnight, Moses was thrust into being the senior pastor of 2 million people who had no idea what God wanted for them as individuals, and certainly didn't have any idea what God wanted for them as a congregation. All they knew was they wanted something different than the slavery of their own making in this place called Egypt. So they followed Moses out into this place called the wilderness. They were hoping to get to this place called the Promised Land right away, a place that we're told was flowing with milk and honey. But maybe you've experienced this in your life, because I certainly have. There's usually a journey towards that Promised Land. We have to go through that wilderness first, and the wilderness is called the wilderness for a reason. It is a tough place. It's a place where we're challenged. It's a place where we're pushed. And leading church boards is difficult. You will go through the wilderness. You will have challenges. You will have difficulties. Well, that's exactly what Moses was doing. Now, here's the orientation that Moses had. If we think about the first principle again, represent Christ above all else. Moses really took his job as the senior pastor seriously to represent the Lord to the people. Go back and read through the stories of Exodus and especially Numbers and Deuteronomy, and you'll see that Moses quite often had to lead the people to do what they didn't want to do. He had to pass along information they didn't want to hear. He had to lead them towards a windy path when they wanted a straight path, and they often got upset with him and, of course, ultimately the Lord. They grumbled. They complained. Well, one day, Moses went on a retreat. He literally took time away from this congregation. He had a sabbatical, in fact. He had to get away, and he went to go spend time with the Lord. And he put his associate pastor, a guy named Aaron, in charge. Read with me if you would. Follow along. Exodus 32, verses 1 through 5. Let's see what happens when the associate pastor takes charge. When the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, they gathered around Aaron and said, "Come, make us gods who will go before us. And for this fellow Moses, who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what has happened to him." Aaron answered them, "Take off the gold earrings that your wives, your sons, and your daughters are wearing, and bring them to me." So all the people took off their earrings and brought them to Aaron. He took what they handed him and made it into an idol cast in the shape of a calf, fashioning it with a tool. Then they said, "These are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt." All right, if you know the story, you already know where I'm headed. But basically, Aaron felt the pressure of the people. And rather than looking to what the Lord wanted, he caved into what the people wanted. They're camped out there at the base of the mountain. They fashion themselves some idols, and they throw a party. You want to know why? Because their idols didn't have any expectations of them. In fact, and this is what happens in our lives. This is a series of sermons I'm going to talk about next in one sentence. When we fashion our own idols, they let us do what we want because we're the ones who made those gods. Well, the people started a party. They started to go wild. They lost their minds. The scene must have been just crazy, right? As Moses and Joshua were coming down, because Joshua was up on the mountain with Moses, as they were coming down from meeting with the Lord, they heard what sounded like maybe a war or something going on, but they found out, no, it was the people partying, and the Lord said, I want to put an end to these guys. Now, thank God for Moses, the senior pastor, because he said, hey, wait a minute, Lord, let me go down, save your people, relent, okay? So he goes down, and the people are out of control. One of my favorite parts of the story is when Moses confronts the associate pastor, his brother, Aaron, and we find it in Exodus 32, verses 21 to 24. Moses said to Aaron, what did these people do to you that you led them into such great sin? And Aaron answered, do not be angry, my Lord. You know how prone these people are to evil. They said to me, make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what happened to him. So I told them, whoever has any gold jewelry, take it off. Then they gave me the gold, and I threw it in the fire, and out came this calf. If you don't think that scripture has humor in it, reread verse 24 over and over again, and you'll laugh. Just think about the absurdity of that excuse, of that lame excuse that Aaron came up with. If you're like me, you probably found several instances where maybe you've done exactly that kind of lame excuse giving in your past. But getting back to the story, there's a steep consequence for what Aaron led the people to do. It's actually pretty brutal. Several people ended up dying and were held accountable. There's even some discipline that Moses brings that sounds extremely unpleasant. But here's the thing that I want you to see in the story. And after you get done watching this, if you want to just do a little devotional, just do some scripture reading, go back and reread this and think about these two statements I'm going to give you. The first one is this. Moses represented the owner, and the people grumbled, but had life. Moses was about what the Lord wanted, and the Lord was about leading the people to where he wanted them to be so he would do what they wanted him to do. If you've ever had situations where you had a good coach who led you to do what you didn't want to do that ultimately led to great success, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Moses was focused on what God wanted. Aaron represented the people, and the people partied, but had death. You see, here's the difference. Aaron represented the people, Moses represented the Lord. As board members, you always have a choice. Who are you ultimately representing? You've got to keep this in mind and realize that if you're not focused on representing Christ above all, it'll lead to death. It might lead to the death, the spiritual death of some people in your church. It might lead to the death of mission in your church. It might even lead to the death of the church itself. But if you and I are going to do what God's really called us to do, to prevail and to be the very presence of Christ in this community that you're planted in, we're going to do what Moses did, which is represent the Lord. So my friends, stay focused. Represent Christ above all. If you found this helpful and you want to learn more about it, if you have questions, if you want to know more about our ministry here at OVB, or if you want to help support us, because this is 100% donor supported, so we can give all these training videos away for free, reach out to me at greg@onevoiceboard.org. I'm praying for you who watch this video, praying that God would bless you and keep you, and that you would stay focused on Him as the true owner of your church. God bless you.